Now we're going to look at 4 leadership styles, because obviously there are very different ways in which we can lead. And these 4 are described in these 4 different boxes. And normally you would go through filling out a questionnaire and answering a lot of questions, which would then determine which of the 4 boxes you fall into. Obviously, we can't really do that in a video format, so I'm just going to share with you what the 4 boxes are, and you can then have to, you're going to have to decide for yourself which box do you feel that you fall into. The first category is called the designer developer, and this category is for people, they have a lot of drive, they have a strong motivation, they want to take charge, and they are able to rise to the challenge of bringing about change to make work more effective. They're often very driven people, driven to achieve, to improve effectiveness and maybe also efficiency, but particularly effectiveness. So if that describes you, maybe that's your category. But there are 3 others, so let's see. The second one is the motivator influencer. These are people who have the ability to motivate, to influence other people to work together to achieve important outcomes. Third one, team builders. These are people who really value relationships, and they seek to build strong relationships, who will then see that unity and cooperation as being crucial to implementing the vision and the plan. And finally, there are those who are called implementers. These are people who have commitment to excellence, and they will carry out all kinds of fine details and any sort of challenging task. This is where you often find the implementers. So you see, these are 4 quite different types of people who can lead. Summarizing that, you have designer developers, they lead with direction. Motivator influencers lead through inspiration. Team builders lead through support and mutual encouragement. And implementers, they lead with caution, risk analysis, problem solving, and so forth. Now, why are they divided up like this? Well, these top 2 roles, these are people who have a fast pace approach to work. Yeah, so the designer developer, the motivator influencer, tack, they want to get it done. They want to do it right now. It's all very fast. And some people are very fast. Quick decision making, quick thinking, quick acting. Whereas implementers and team builders, they are more slow, careful, cautious. They need to take the time to do the job properly. And so you can see that fast people might see the slow people as being, come on, get with it, go a bit faster, because, we've got to do this today, we can't wait until tomorrow. Whereas the implementers and team builders might be thinking, yeah, but you're rushing this, you're going to miss something crucial. And so, you can see that there can be challenges between these 2 groups. But you can also divide it the other way and say that designer developers and implementers, they are much more focused on the tasks that are needed to be done, whereas the motivator influencers and team builders, they're more interested in the relationships. And again, there can be, those who are more task orientated will say, hey, come on, it's nice that you're talking to all these people. That's a good thing, but only if it results in achieving the task. Similarly, there is the people who are more relationship orientated. They're going to look at the task type people and they're going to say, yeah, but look, this is very hard and business minded, cold, go for the task. But what about the relationships? You cannot achieve your tasks if you don't also have good relationships in place. And of course, they're all true, but we see each other in different ways. Let's look at these roles each four of them a little bit more carefully. Let's look at the designer developer to start with. They're people who like to take charge. They rise to the challenge. They want to see change happen. They want to start things. They're often starters, not necessarily finishers. They tend to be rather dominant, quite directive, highly motivated, highly driven. They like to motivate other people, and they can be very, very focused on achieving specific goals. They like situations where there is a high degree of personal freedom. They can choose what they do. They like variety. They like different things coming up, different possibilities. They like opportunities where they can challenge. They can tackle different tasks. They can take calculated risks and see if it works or not. They can have a chance to show off, maybe, to see advancement. They like to do things maybe a little bit on their own. And they tend to respond well with other people who provide direct answers. I give you a question, I want an answer. I don't want lots of blah, blah, blah. I want the answer. They like people who stick to the business. They like people who keep up with their fast pace. They tend to like people who are focused on logic. So you can see that if you are working with a designer developer, and maybe that's not who you are, you have to kind of keep up. You have to, if you want to get on their side, you've got to give quick, short answers that you have to remember they are task orientated and they are fast. So that's how you need to approach them. How about the motivator influencers? They like to have people around. They just like being with other people. They encourage people to work. It's all about talking to one another, motivating each other. There's lots of expression. There's lots of emotions that are being showed. There's inspiration, passion. These are the kinds of words that they like. They're often very good salespeople, and people will respond to them quite positively. They like situations where there's a chance for recognition, where they can be seen that they have done a good job, and they might get named for it. They like friendly relationships. They like having freedom from too much control and domination. And they like the chance to help other people, to motivate and inspire other people. They like being around people who are friendly and reasonable, who are appreciative and who will thank them, like them back. They like people who give them recognition and will accept them for who they are. And they like to seek social situations, social involvement. Team builders. Team builders are very people orientated. They notice the needs that other people have, and they will want to try, if they can, to reach out and meet some of those needs. They tend to be very friendly people, very open. They're often very loyal to the group. They're often highly motivated, but they want to work together as a group. They're not going to go forging ahead on their own. They want to cooperate with others and carry out plans and visions as a team. And they like situations where they can bring their individual speciality, and maybe they can draw out the particular skills that other people may have. They like having a sense of group identity rather than just a personal identity. They like having routine, established work patterns. They like a certain degree of security, not just job security, but that they feel safe in their environment. And they need very clear guidance as to what it is that they should be doing. And they respond well to people who work as a team, who will take time to adjust and to change, who will allow freedom for them to work at their own pace. If you remember, they're in the slower working bracket. They like to work carefully and methodically with other people, and they will appreciate other people who also give support. Implementers. They are strongly focused on the task that needs to be done. They want excellence in everything. They have a danger of being, of course, perfectionists, but not necessarily. but that can be a risk. They're great at planning and implementing those plans. They're the kind of people who you can trust to get the job done. They're often very analytical. They can be quite risk averse and quite cautious, and they will carry out a vision or a plan, and they will work through the details to make sure it is done well. They like situations where there are specialist skills required and they can fit in just the right place. They like precision, they like planning, they like security and stability, and they like to finish the job. And they respond well to other people who provide reassurance, who say, yes, you're doing the right thing, you're on the right track, well done. They like people who provide that supportive atmosphere, who will give them clarity in terms of the methods and the standards they should be hitting. And they like people who recognize and value the contribution that they are bringing. But of course, designer developers, when they meet other designer developers, they think that those people are very good, very decisive, independent, efficient, practical, determined. Here's somebody who gets the job done. But if somebody is not a designer developer, how do they see you? Well, they might see you as a little bit intimidating, maybe a bit uncaring or egotistical, maybe even a little bit of a dictator, harsh, pushy, dominating, something like that. Motivative influencers, when they meet each other, they find each other stimulating, enthusiastic, dramatic, outgoing, very personable, lovely people to be around. But other people might find a motivator influencer a little bit excitable, maybe a little bit egotistical. They tend to be very reactive. They might even feel them as being manipulative and far too talkative, rather time-wasting, inefficient, overly sensitive. Team builders, they see other team builders as supportive, willing, dependable, reliable, agreeable, nice people to work with. But other people who are not team builders might see a team builder as being somebody who kind of seems to lack confidence. Can they really do the job on their own? They seem to want to conform to other things and not really take a step on their own. They seem a little bit awkward in some settings. They seem to be rather dependent on other people, rather timid, unimaginative, indecisive, and slow. And implementers, when they meet other implementers, they think, here's somebody who is thorough, who is persistent, somebody who is very orderly, serious, hard-working, good people to work with. But what if you're not an implementer? Well, if you're not an implementer and you see an implementer, you might be thinking that they're rather critical, they're rather picky, they're very indecisive, they seem to take forever, they're very moralistic, maybe unimaginative, and frankly just downright boring. So you can imagine when you are seen by somebody different from who you are yourself, you can come across in ways that you didn't imagine. How could you be so blind to how others see you? What can we do about this? How can we become more rounded leaders? All four of these are good. All four of these are right. It's not that there's a right or a wrong answer going on here. The fact is that we are all different and we see each other in different ways. But what can we do to try and be better understood in our role? Well, designer developers. If you know that you are a designer developer, maybe it would be useful to learn to listen a little bit more, to be more patient with other people, to be careful not to be too autocratic and telling people how it should be. Maybe even develop concern for people, not just tasks. And sometimes people, they need time. Even though you're a very fast-paced person, maybe you need to slow down when dealing with some people. Maybe you need to be a bit more flexible or a bit more supportive. And assure people whom you work with that you do notice them, you do value them, you do appreciate them. And maybe you need to explain why things are the way that they are. Motivator influencers. Maybe you need to be a little bit less impulsive. Spend time listening to others. Maybe you need to learn how to control your own emotions a bit and not talk quite so much. Maybe you need to evaluate your own ideas before putting them out there. Maybe be a little bit more sensitive about time, and maybe a little bit more results orientated, focusing on details and facts. It's not easy. These things do not come naturally. That's why we need to work on them. We have real strengths in our own type, but we also have to recognize that every strength also comes with it a series of weaknesses that we have to work on sometimes. Team builders. Maybe you need to just be a little bit less sensitive to what everybody else thinks. Just become a little bit more direct. What do you think? Be more concerned with the task, not just the people and their feelings. Maybe get a little bit more decisive and recognize that sometimes you don't have all of the information, but you have to make a decision nevertheless. Maybe you have to get used to handling confrontation or learning how to say no when you don't agree. Maybe you have to learn how to be a little bit more assertive. And also sometimes initiate ideas. Don't just wait for other people to bring the ideas that you can then join in with. Maybe sometimes you need to bring the idea. And finally, implementers. Maybe you need to focus on doing the right things, not just on doing things right. Sometimes implementers can be so focused on getting the details just right that actually they've spent an awful lot of time doing the wrong thing. Maybe we need to learn how to be more quick in our responses and trusting intuition, not just being fact orientated. Sometimes we have to become more willing to take a few risks and not afraid to develop relationships. Maybe we need to recruit team members who have different styles. Maybe we need to listen to other members of the team who can show them that we value their input and be willing to delegate, because of course a leader who is an implementer will tend to think that they are the only one who can do it really right, so they may find it difficult to delegate. And whatever type we are, we have to recognize that the people that we work with, they change, and they're going to have different strengths and different weaknesses at different times and in different seasons and even with different projects. There's one theory called Situational Leadership, which we're going to go into in more depth in a later module. But you can see here, people start often at the beginning of a project, they start with high confidence. They think, yeah, I can do this, no problem. But actually, they have a very low level of competence. As time goes on, their confidence suddenly falls when they realize, oh my goodness, actually I can't do this. I have no idea what I'm doing. But slowly their competence is growing. And as time goes on, their competence rises and they learn how to do it and they become more skilled at it. And slowly their confidence starts to be regained until eventually they are both capable of doing it and they feel confident to do it. Now you can imagine that as somebody goes from being a beginner to being a master of a task, it means that you have to lead them in different ways. To start with, they need a lot of direction. They need to know what it is that they have to do. Because actually they might think they know what they're doing, but they don't really know. As it moves on, they need coaching. They need to see that what they're doing is right or is not right and needs to be corrected. They need that coaching so that they're rapidly learning how to do the thing well. Then it moves into a stage where they need support, because actually they are now getting it. They just need the confidence to know that they're getting it. And then finally you move into a stage where you can just delegate the work to them, because yes, they're doing it and they know how to do it, and you as the leader just need to leave them to it. And so we have these 4 different stages of directing, where the leader provides specific instructions and closely supervises. Secondly, moving on to coaching, where the leader is explaining the decisions and trying to get ideas from them, soliciting suggestions, but is continuing to be fairly directive. Moving into a stage of supporting, where the leader makes some decisions together with the follower and then supports their effort towards the task. And finally moving into an area of delegation, where the leader turns over the decision to the follower and says, "You do it. I can hold you accountable for this." And this is situational leadership. We will go into this in more detail a little bit later in the modules.